we've been in the workforce since World War II. Like, that's how long women have been in the industrial world. So if they haven't had time to get used to that, which is like almost 80 years worth of time, I have to ask, who's the snowflake here?
So when I started planning out this channel, I asked a lot of my colleagues what kind of material, what kind of videos they would like to see, or what kind of topics they would like to see videos on. And a lot of the ladies that I spoke to, they mentioned that they would like to see a video based on women in the workplace and how the future female health and safety professionals can succeed and maneuver through all the machoistic, testosterone-filled, predominantly male job sites. So that is what this video is all about. But don't worry, I'm not going to be the one to talk to you about it because, well, let's face it, I have no idea what it's like to walk in your shoes. So I've brought in some help. Rachel Walla, who is a CSP, as well as a recent achiever of the CIH, has been featured in articles at business.com, Forbes, numerous podcasts, and she also has her very own YouTube channel, Ally Safety, where she tries to bring an entertaining viewpoint to educating the workforce and really just the general public in all things health and safety. So Rachel, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thanks. That was actually a really nice introduction. I'm like, you did your homework. Wow.
Yeah, I try to be prepared sometimes.
Yeah, I would also like to point out, I appreciate that you didn't wear camo today because I almost wore camo. And if we both showed up on camera wearing camo again, I think it would throw our audiences off.
Yeah, they may not be able to see us.
Yeah, well, that is first and foremost a big problem. And then second, they're like, wait, are these guys twins? No, I want to show you my shirt though before we get started. So this is from Xena Workwear and it says, the right man for the job may be a woman. I don't know if it's going to come up backwards.
I like that.
On the screen, but yeah, kind of cool. I like it too.
So, okay, well, so I gave you a little bit of an introduction for yourself, but tell us a little bit about yourself. Like how long you've been in this industry? What kind of, what's your background kind of entail?
Yeah, so I've been in safety for 10 years full time now. Before that, I had like some longer term jobs while I was in college and stuff. But I think I've got a unique perspective to talk about this. One reason is I grew up in logging and excavating and construction. So I'm very comfortable interacting with people from, the trades who maybe work in rougher industries and stuff like that. And then also throughout my career, I have worked in manufacturing, construction, a little bit of a stint in the oil field, and now I do consulting. So basically, I may be on a different site 3 times a week now. So what that means is I've had to interact in a lot of different levels. I've also been a safety manager, and so I've had to interact a lot at the management level as well. And so what all this has taught me and showed me is that there's different culture everywhere you go, right? And you've got to be able to kind of smoothly relate to people no matter what level of the organization they're at. And so I think I can give some useful pointers as somebody who has experienced a lot in the last 10 years, and hopefully just help you to kind of get through some of the more difficult or awkward situations you may find yourself in.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you probably have to almost change your approach whenever you go to like an oil field, or if you go to just a random run-of-the-mill construction site. You probably have to judge your approach and how you handle the management and even the workforce as well that are out there. And,
right.
Right. And I know one of the questions I wanted to ask you later on that I think kind of is a good segue into it now.
Okay.
But is there, whenever you set foot on a new job site, like what are some of the more common obstacles that you find yourself having to find a way to overcome, and how do you normally do that to make sure that it kind of gets a positive outcome to it?
Okay. Well, it helps to have a little bit of experience and know what you're walking into. For example, I know a construction site is usually going to react differently and have a different dynamic than a manufacturing or like a large factory sort of site will. It's also different if you're going to be talking to people who are in the trades versus people who are on the management team, because their interactions on a day-to-day are a lot different. But that being said, every company is different as well. So for me, I kind of have found like one approach that generally works, and that is be straightforward, be confident, and be friendly. I'm generally a friendly person anyway, but I find like if I'm especially new to a site, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to make sure my posture is good. I'm going to hold my head tall, and like you can hear me talking now, I try not to talk at a high pitch. It kind of comes naturally, I think, to women, especially when you're being like friendly or accommodating, you kind of raise your voice a little bit. I try not to do that, because we sound more confident if we bring it down an octave. So like, for you girls out there, if you watch some of my early safety videos that came out like early in 2020, you'll hear me. I'm not comfortable on the camera. And I'm like talking like this a little bit. It doesn't work. It actually makes you sound like you don't know what you're talking about, or like you're not confident in yourself. So lower it an octave, walk like you know what you're doing. And it's kind of one of those things where maybe if you haven't built up the experience, you do have to fake it till you make it. But I've found that it's helpful to watch those videos, like how to project confidence and how to show that you know what you're talking about, how to feel good about yourself. And so those little like body language cues, if you can incorporate those, it actually makes you feel more confident.
Right. Yeah. And that's absolutely right. And it's weird because there's not many things that you could realistically fake, but your self-confidence is one thing that is pretty easy to fake until you actually start to trick your mind into thinking that, like, hey, I really am confident, and then start, going about your day-to-day activities and doing your job without really having to think about what you would need to do to project confidence, because you would already be confident. How have you handled people not listening to you because they often think, well, what does she know? Or the common thing that you hear a lot of people say, a lot of men say, is like, well, I'm not going to take orders for women, so I'm just not going to listen to anything that she's saying. I'm just going to keep doing my own thing.
I mean, well, one, that's cute, right? I mean, seriously, anybody who has been around powerful women, whether it's in the home, like our moms, our grandmas, our aunts, or seen them in the workforce, knows that like we have our own power. It's like, it's not as though somebody can just come up and take that away. In a way, you have to believe what they're saying a little bit for it to take away any of your authority. Now, I know walking into a job site, like, I know what I know, and I feel comfortable with what I know. I don't know everything off the top of my head. And that's kind of the tough thing in safety, is if you do have sort of a crew that's maybe more adverse or maybe not as open to working with you as you would want, it's very realistic that you're going to walk in there and you're going to have a hard time, And so I don't mean to diminish that or take it away. But I also think that being prepared and knowing what you're up against a little bit can really be helpful. So if you have a chance to learn about the job before you come on site, if you have a chance to kind of get to know a few people, that's really helpful. But if that isn't there, you have to be able to rely on yourself and know that you are a credible source. You do have a seat at this workplace. Obviously, your employer thinks so because they brought you on. So that should give you a little bit of confidence, and also having your homework done helps. Now, let's get into the actual interaction part, because that's where it gets a little tough, because we know when somebody's treating us like we're dumb. Like, we know when somebody's not taking us seriously. I would say the vast majority of men that I've worked with have been excellent to work with. They may look rough around the edges. They may dish it out a little bit, but if you can give it back, like, you'll have a good back and forth and you gain respect. Now, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. The first time you walk on a job site, usually people have to get to know you. Respect is built over time, right? And so
they're always going to try and size you up.
They are. And I'm sure you've dealt with it too. Sometimes it can be a lot more difficult in a woman's shoes. And there are occasionally those guys out there who legitimately do not want to work with women. I find that to be pretty rare, but it is frustrating. Now, again, the thing that's going to matter is that you back yourself up and you have confidence. Now, if somebody is just sort of subtly, maybe doesn't like working with you and has their own personal problems with it, you can just leave that. They have to sort that out. We've been in the workforce since World War II. Like, that's how long women have been in the industrial world. So if they haven't had time to get used to that, which is like almost 80 years worth of time, I have to ask, who's the snowflake here?
Because women were holding down the home front, holding down the factories and all the other manly jobs, while the soldiers were away fighting in World War II. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. Women in the workplace is not necessarily a new concept for people to get used to.
Exactly. And so if they are having problems with it, if it's somebody that you can sweep it under the rug, hold your head high and continue on, that's going to work great. But if it comes to where you actually have to have interactions with that person and they are disrespectful, and they are problematic, what I have found to work is I draw my line in the sand. Like, I make a note in my head of where my boundary is. And this will be a little bit different for everybody. But it's like, if you are going to be blatantly disrespectful to my face, then we're going to have a problem, because I'm going to come here and I'm going to act like a professional, and I expect the same of everybody else on site. And most reasonable people do, right? Like, you know, we don't come here to fight. We come here to get a job done. And if they're holding up that job, that's a problem. So if they're going to be disrespectful and they've crossed that line that I've set up for myself, maybe it's something like snickering at everything I say, or whispering while I'm trying to give a safety talk, like that type of stuff. I have no problem just standing there. Like, let's say it's in a toolbox talk. Everything I say, he's elbowing his buddy, they're making jokes, they think it's hilarious. You can just be like, Gary, do you have something you'd like to say?
Like, no, I'm good.
That's what they always say. No, I'm good. Yeah. But it kind of works, because that awkward pause, people hate awkward pauses more than anything. Is what I found. And you just sit there, stay strong, hold your stance, watch them for a minute, and just let them know, like, hey, I know what you're doing. I'm not going to sit here and take it. Like, I don't like to be confrontational, but sometimes that's enough for people who get subtle cues. Now, as we talked about yesterday, there are people who do not get subtle cues. Like, you are going to have to come out with something a lot stronger than that. So you can also, if they say something blatantly disrespectful to you, you can say, like, do you have a problem with working with me? You know, is there something that I have done to upset you? You know, you can try to solve it that way, but sometimes I find it is just better to be like, look, I'm trying to work with you here. Like, I'm coming in, I'm being professional. I'll work with you, but I need you to work with me too. And sometimes these guys are rougher around the edges, and they do loosen up over time. But if they won't loosen up, they're just difficult to work with. As a safety professional, we usually have to go to their supervisor if it is a serious problem. I know nobody likes to do that, but you know, if you have somebody who repeatedly refuses to work with you, your job is to keep things safe on that site. And they have to respect that everybody has a job there, right? Like, you wouldn't go and treat the quality guy like that, right? Like, he expects you to hold a certain standard of work. That's how we act as professionals in this environment. So if they're not going to do that, you do have to address it with their supervisor. Usually the first line supervisor is the best person to go to. I've usually found kind of going through it in that order works well. Now, if it's more serious, we can talk about what to do from there. But typically that will solve the problem.
And I guess you kind of have to judge it by your own, what you think is appropriate. Because I know you say you kind of draw your line in the sand. Because I know some people kind of wonder, like, when should I address it myself and try to take care of things myself? When should I get other people involved, like HR? So I guess, you know, that would kind of be, it may be different for you. It may be different for someone else that's watching this video. So I guess it would be one of those things that wherever you feel like you're starting to feel uncomfortable and you're kind of finding a brick wall that you're not getting any kind of leeway from, then that's when you should take it to HR and kind of bring other forces into the mix and see if there's other ways of being able to get it handled. But I know you said you have the supervisor address it. Obviously, let them do it first. But if you still don't see any kind of further acceptance from that employee, then you kind of take it that extra mile.
Yeah, that's true. So, like, kind of the situations that happen the most commonly are ones where people's jokes cross the line. And as people who joke, like, you and I probably both cross the line with people at certain times, and you don't always know where that line is, right? So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt that way. Now, that being said, there are those players who are not joking, who are going to be rude. They're going to continue to be rude. They're going to undermine your authority on the site and make it almost impossible for you to do your job. And I'm not going to underplay that, because it has made some jobs extremely difficult for me. So, I mean, when you've drawn your line, I always think it's good to speak up, right? Because people sometimes don't know. And so if you've spoken up and they won't do anything about it and their behavior doesn't change, you know, beyond the supervisors, you can go to HR. Now, I will tell you that going to HR can fix the problem, and it can be a great thing to do, and it's a resource that we have to use sometimes. I will also tell you, like, if you're working on a small company, maybe there aren't a lot of companies around, so you don't have options of, like, you know, going to work for somebody else when you're fed up with this kind of thing. You can be put in a very difficult position.
Yeah, there's always a flip side to the coin, especially when you bring HR into the mix.
Yeah, so it can be a difficult situation to handle. Now, being strong, maintaining your strength for a while works out, but I've had those situations where you maybe have somebody who's harassing you, and you have done what you can in your own behavior to manage it, and it doesn't work out. And so your next option, of course, is to go to HR. Document what you've done, document what you've said, how you've handled it. Like you talked about yesterday, most of us keep some sort of a work diary where we talk about what happened. If you have documented proof of what's happened, it's going to help you out. And I think since the Me Too movement and stuff, people are more apt to listen to women. Let's say, and I'm not only talking about sexual harassment, I mean just like blatant disrespect with problem people. It's hard to go to HR with those because you don't know how that's going to be taken, and you need to be able to trust your HR department. But there is two sides of that coin. Like that guy can be like, oh, she called HR on me, and then everybody thinks that you're somebody who's going to cause problems or tell on them and things like that. I would say like that is a very childish behavior, first of all, in the case of that person who's saying that. And secondly, if they are harassing you, they are probably going to harass another woman who comes on site. And as we know, like we're in the industrial world, we're here to stay. So sometimes it is a service to other people to say, hey, this guy has a problem. HR needs to know, this needs to be fixed, because they're making the workplace less productive by not respecting people. So I would say to do that. But like, I want to return to this one point. So for a lot of people, they may not have a lot of industries to choose from, right? So like if you live in a less populated area, you may only have a few employers to go to. And I've been in situations where you can't go to HR because HR is related or best friends with this person or whatever. So you do have to also have in the back of your mind where your line is too on if this job is going to be a good place for you to work. Because we don't deserve to work and be disrespected day after day. And so I actually did have to leave a job at one point. And it was when I was in college. I was younger. I didn't know what I know now, but there was no way out that I could see where this would end well. And so eventually I made the choice like, I can go to HR, but I don't think they're going to do anything. And I can try to do what I've already done 15 times, but it's not changing anything and it hasn't in the past. And so I made the decision, like, I would rather work somewhere else and not deal with this and possibly give up this opportunity, which I really enjoyed the work. So it was a difficult choice to make, but I think in the end it was the right one to make. And it's what needed to happen.
What would you say? Because I can hear it now from people that I've worked with in the past, but because you mentioned kind of like the worksite banter that people have,
Yeah.
And I can hear people now that I used to work with, like, well, if women want to be treated equally, this is just how we talk to people in the field. Like, if they want to be treated equally, I should be able to talk to her the same way that I talk to Billy Bob over there. Or sometimes that that field humor can be a little excessive, and it may not be for everyone.
Right. And we also know that the field humor often has like a sexual connotation to it. And that can be awkward for a woman and you're surrounded by men. Right. So it's like, okay, yeah, like equality. We all believe that it's good to treat people equally, but that doesn't mean that we're all the same. Right. Like
exactly. Yes.
You know,
I could say something to you and you wouldn't necessarily be offended, but I could say something to another young lady and then she would be completely offended.
Yeah. Or like, what if not even offended? What if you're just like embarrassing somebody, and like,
right. Yes.
Like you don't want somebody to feel that way. Like, oh God, this is so awkward. Like that's also really unpleasant. So I'm not easily offended. And so I think that there, like when I think back on these situations where I'm like, all right, this has gone far enough. Like, I don't want to hear this type of joke. It's not always that you have to be really stern. There are cases where you need to be, but sometimes a simple, all right, that's enough. People get it.
Like, all right, I'm good. That's it.
Yeah.
My mom has this saying, if she's had enough, she just goes, I'm done. Everyone knows what that means.
Yeah, it's good to have a few of those in your back pocket where you just have, you can say it with a smile if it's a joke and it's in good humor and you just want to like, say, all right, we're good now. Like your mom, all right, I'm done. If it's more stern, like definitely make sure that your expression matches it, right? So, all right. You finished? Something
we
like
move
that.
on?
Yeah, just having
Yeah.
it for those that you can always use is helpful. If it's bad, you may have to get a little bit more strict and be like, look, I don't want to hear that again. And hold your
sometimes
hold
if
your
they keep it
expression
up,
for a
you have
minute,
to
like,
be.
yeah, let's just let that hang in the air and be very serious for another 2-3 seconds and then move on.
It'll give them a little bit of time to process. Like, she's being serious. Oh no, she's being serious. All right, my bad. Never mind.
That's exactly the way people react. Wait, is she being sarcastic? Is she joking? And so you do have to make it clear you're serious.
This is not going to be a very good segue into the next question, but how would you address a man coming to you as to kind of propose going out on a date or some kind of relationship or whatnot? I know there's a lot of men out there that, yes, it is always awkward. I don't know. I don't care. At least for me, and I've never ever dated. Never ever. I've never dated anyone that I've worked with. I just think it would just be all types of awkwardness.
I mean, that's how I feel about it too. I did date somebody at a job that I had previously. He was a great person. But when we started dating, I kind of was already ready to move to another company. And so, that made it easier because I had made that transition. I hate
like a lot of men can just be
so awkward.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes. I just, if someone approached you, like, hey, would you like to go out for a drink or go out for dinner? Be like, no, that's okay. I'm not interested. Then automatically, you're either a lesbian or you're a B word. Just that men don't take too kindly to being turned down. And that's not necessarily only related to the job site, but in terms of the job site, how do you normally try to what kind of tips or something can you give someone that is kind of in this same situation, either now or may find them in it later on down the road?
Yeah, these situations are always fairly painful. I would say, one, because I feel bad, like, did I give them the wrong impression? Right. And so women, we tend to blame ourselves for these types of things. Like, oh man, how did I make them feel like this was the direction things were going? So, I always try to have a pretty clear boundary there. Personally, I don't like to talk about my relationships at work. So whether I'm in a relationship, out of a relationship, unless we're pretty good friends at work, I don't really want to talk about that. Sometimes that can leave the door open as it is. And I was actually talking about this to my friend the other day. Like, I didn't know, should you just wear a ring? And she's married and she goes, it doesn't help.
I can't say that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So obviously that's off the table, not really an effective way to go about it. Presenting yourself in a way where you do not think you're being flirtatious, where you do not think you're giving any hints at all that you're interested, that also is not as effective as we would like it to be sometimes. And I always feel for the guys because it's humiliating to be turned down as well. Right. So, I think that the best way to deal with this is I try not to have too many Facebook friends from work. I try not to give out my personal number that much, and I think that being able to recognize the cues of when something like this is coming and not having one-on-one time with that person and kind of keeping your professional distance is the best way to manage it. Now, for the guys, I would say if you are interested in somebody at work, you want a really clear go ahead before you do anything like that, right? Like, if you have their personal number, if you're friends outside of work and you frequently get together, maybe that's a good indicator that there's a chance there, because people date at work pretty frequently. That is how a lot of people meet, a lot of long-term successful relationships. So, not that we encourage it, but that's the reality of the situation. So Don't go ahead with any sort of hey, can I take you out? Can I not? Unless you are very clear that that's probably going to be a yes. Now, on top of that, I want to mention one thing. So I was sitting in a sexual harassment training with an audience of 65 people at work, and the HR is leading it, and they go through this whole video, what you can and can't do. And I remember all the guys' main takeaway, they left there laughing so you can ask once, right? They thought it was hilarious. But the way that some sexual harassment company rules work are kind of that way. Somebody can say, hey, I'd really like to take you out for a drink. Would you be up for going? And we have to be like, no, unfortunately, I don't date people from work, or I have a boyfriend, or, I'm just not interested in dating right now, whatever your excuse is. And so if they do that once, like, don't get creeped out, don't hold it against them. But if it keeps coming from there, then it kind of falls into the harassment category. And then you probably need to be more stern or talk to HR.
Right. Yeah, and it's very good tips. And I guess just with anything, there's a certain process that you should kind of follow. With, if you normally go out to have drinks with this one person or with a group of people, I mean that can kind of lead into it. But just right out the gate at work, it could probably kind of be a little bit awkward, as you said. One of the issues that I've been told are things that come up a lot with ladies is, that sounded horrible. I didn't mean that, but people don't normally take you very seriously because they think that you can't really physically do the job. So there's really no way of you being able to understand what the hazards are, or how you could coach them into being able to do it safely or anything like that.
Right. And so the way to approach those is, okay, so for me, I'm going to give a little bit of background. Like, I grew up in logging and construction, and I ran heavy machinery. My dad treated us like men on the crew. I wasn't like, there was no daddy's little girl sort of thing going on there. We had to work really hard. So I kind of went into work with like this sort of confidence, feeling like I could do it. But logging and construction is a world of difference from like the oil field or from manufacturing. And so my point of telling you this is like, I felt fairly confident, but I had to start from ground zero again because I knew nothing about manufacturing. Again, walk in with confidence, but walk in with curiosity. In safety, we see so many different processes that you're never going to know everything, and that's okay. A lot of people like to be asked about their work. They like people who show a genuine curiosity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's flattering to have somebody be interested in what you're doing, whether you're a pipe fitter or a nuclear scientist, right? And so ask the questions and ask them with a genuine desire to know, and then kind of create the safety solutions from there. So don't come in saying we can't do it this way. Say, hey, like, can you show me what you're doing and explain it? And then ask questions. Don't be afraid to sound dumb. Like, I'm not. I'll ask questions, and they may be like, treat me like I'm a little dumb at first because like, I don't know what your acronym stands for. Like, it's different at every company,
Yeah.
So I go in, I ask lots of questions, and usually through that, they can see that you want to work with them, that you care, and it really helps you to come out with the right solutions rather than being scared to ask and having to assume, and that can kind of lead to the wrong solutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, exactly like you said, if you don't know something, you have to be willing to ask a question, and you have to always kind of be willing to learn, regardless of how much you think you may know, because there's always someone out there that could probably teach you something.
Oh, for sure.
So, and the field guys absolutely love talking about what they're doing with someone that is eager to actually try and learn and will listen to them and try and learn. So, I mean, that's absolutely right. You just have to get in there, ask as many questions as you can, because even if you worked in health and safety for 20 something years, I mean, even inside of safety, different health and safety professionals have their own little niche inside of the program that they're more familiar with. Like,
oh, for sure.
I am real fluent. I am real proficient in like fall protection, and I'm not so much in electrical. So I always refer to other people. I always do a lot of reading, and I stay the hell away from any kind of electrical work outside of work because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing.
I know. Electrical
you never learn everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So exactly like you said, you'll never learn everything.
Yeah, and like, there are so many hundreds of pages of OSHA code, and of course it's different from construction to general industry. You cannot be expected to know all of them as one person, right? So
Yeah.
like, we're gonna get there, but I think that you have to have realistic expectations and be willing to learn with the people that you work with.
Mm-hmm. And I guess one way to kind of simplify it in a way, I guess you could say, is if you're working with a company that has an established procedure program or established procedures, but a lot of those procedures are based on the minimum requirements of OSHA. So if you feel so intimidated about going and pulling up the OSHA book, just pull up the procedures and policy requirements that the organization may have. And if you just follow that as a minimum, 9 times out of 10, that's not necessarily going to steer you wrong, unless you're at a point where you guys are having to write it. Then you're going to have to make sure you refer back to OSHA quite a bit.
Well, and I would kind of like to bring up something with this too. What I'm thinking about here specifically is like, especially young female safety professionals who maybe don't have much of a mechanical or industrial background. Like, I know for a lot of us in safety, we may have been raised in that sort of environment, or, you know, have dads or uncles or brothers who work in that sort of environment. But if you're kind of coming into it fresh and you don't know, it can be harder because you feel like a duck out of water, right? Like you're kind of approaching something that's really foreign that you've never really dealt with before. And I would say, like, people may look rough around the edges, but most of them are great people. They're going to be some of the greatest people you've ever met, you know?
Absolutely.
And for the question of, you know, you can't do the job physically, or maybe you can't do the job technically, I would say, like, we don't do a lot of jobs physically as much anymore, one. So there's more of a chance, like, a lot of women do these jobs now. So that's great inspiration. Start following them on Instagram and stuff like that. Start seeing the women that are out there doing it, because it shows you, like, yeah, you could do this job. They could do it. If I could do it, you could do it, you know, like that kind of thing. And then also I would say, like, and Terry, I don't know how many like makeup YouTubers you've ever watched, but if you've ever seen, like, or if you've ever known a girl who can do a smoky eye or contour her face, like, and in makeup, like, that is a complicated process. Like, I'm sorry, if you can handle that, you could handle something in the industrial environment. It's usually fewer steps and a lot easier.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I can't say I've seen too many of them.
Well, I don't know what you do in your spare time, so I didn't want to make assumptions.
It's probably a safe bet. What would you say to women getting into the field, or looking at getting into it, and how to deal with that male bravado of not wanting to show any kind of weakness, or not wanting to look foolish in front of any of their colleagues, and then just try to flat out ignore something that you're saying to them, even though you know you're right and you have a point, and deep down they probably know you're right too, but they don't want to look like they don't want to look foolish in front of their boys or their friends or anything like that. Right.
And so by doing so, you know, them not wanting to look foolish, they may actually be making you look foolish without realizing it.
Right. Yes. They're trying to turn the tables a little bit around on you.
Yeah, I mean, you can try, right? Like, good on you for giving it the old college try, but we're not going that way. No, like, I don't want to be treated or made to feel at work like I'm embarrassed or anything like that either, right? So if you're coming up and you've got a safety issue and you're treating them like a naughty child, like, of course you're going to get resistance from that. So you never want to take that approach. It's always treat people with dignity and respect the way that you want to be treated. It doesn't matter what level of the organization. Best is to treat everybody with dignity and respect at all times. It doesn't matter. And you get a lot better response that way. Now, if somebody is going to take offense to something that you felt was like respectful and fair and just be rude to you about it, you can hold your own, like you can stand your ground. Sometimes that means literally standing there. And sometimes you may say, hey, like, can I talk to you about this? And you can have a one-on-one about it. But we don't want to ever make people feel like they're being like they can't maintain the respect of themselves or their crew. Now, if it comes to the point where they're actually being disrespectful to me and saying disrespectful things, then we're going to have to talk. And usually it will involve a supervisor or HR, because you're not allowed to like treat me with disrespect. You know, as women, like part of treating people with dignity and respect is treating yourself with dignity and respect. So you don't let people treat you like that at work, right? And like nobody wants to go to the supervisor, nobody wants to go to HR, but we have to have a level of professionalism that we maintain, and we have to hold other people to that level sometimes. So if it's blatant like that, yeah, have a direct conversation. If that's not going to work, call in the supervisor or talk to HR about it, because we can't have those types of things. It's bad all the way around. It's bad for everybody at work.
Well, it's just like you said, it's just, you want to maintain a professional work environment. You want to treat each other with respect, and you expect the same thing in return. So it's not too much to really ask of people.
Yeah, it's really not.
Yeah, it's quite simple.
Come on, we gotta go to work. Gotta put on our big boy pants today, all of us.
No, but I mean, I like this. I think this will help out a lot of ladies that watch this. And really, I think a lot of what we're discussing in this video, it can also be geared towards both men and women, because when you really boil it down, it just, when you start a new job, especially in this position, you want to kind of try and promote some sort of self-confidence that you have in yourself, to show people that you know what you're doing, even if you really don't know what you're doing yet. And then really just asking a lot of questions. Don't being afraid to ask questions and learn, and then just treating people with respect. And boiling it all down, that's almost the way we should handle ourselves throughout life in general.
Right.
So I think a lot of this will help out a lot of women in particular, because this is why we wanted to talk to you. But really, anyone getting into this field in general.
Yeah, and I would also one thing that I think is important along with that is maybe you show up with a background in safety, or maybe you show up with a degree or experience or whatever you have. You got to stay humble, because you're always going to be kind of going back to square one and learning the culture of the place that you work at, learning their specific processes. So it's you got to be humble but confident at the same time. That's tricky, but you can do it.
Absolutely. What would be some tips that you would like to tell women who are looking at getting into this profession?
There have been challenges with this, I would say. But I don't know anybody in other professions who hasn't had challenges. Let's say you're a nurse and you work in a really female dominated environment. There's also difficulties associated with that as well. Teachers experience it. Female programmers experience it. I don't know anybody who has a job where there aren't some difficulties that we've got to sort out there. Right. And so it's kind of choose your battles. So there are some difficulties in dealing with environments that are largely male. But I would say that there are a lot of trade-offs too. There is gossip, there is drama. Men do it differently than women. So the idea that it doesn't exist is false. It's there. It's just different. And I would say I have had the privilege of working with some excellent people, far many more excellent men than I have had creepers or people that are jerks and stuff like that. But they do happen. So I'm not going to Pollyanna it and say that they're not out there, because they are. I would say you need to be strong and you need to be confident. You need to have a little bit of a thick skin, and you need to realize that sort of banter, that sort of back and forth, guys tease each other in this environment. And if they're giving you a little bit of fun, you got to dish it back. And doing that is fun. It's part of work. It's okay. But know where your line is, and also be prepared that, you may have some difficult situations. It's not going to be unique to this environment, but there may be more of them, because there's just more people that you're going to interact with. So you got to be strong, you got to hold your line, and you've got to treat yourself with a lot of respect and expect other people to do that same. Do
you think there's any difference between men and women and getting a job in safety?
Yes, there is. I think that difference is becoming less and less. And right. The workplace is changing, but it would be silly for me to be oh no, it's exactly the same, because we know it's not, right? Right. So there is kind of a problem with the safety field in that it's not as respected as it should be, right? I won't get as much respect as an engineer automatically. I may have all the credentials, I may have all the degrees, I may have none of that. It's just not a field that's as respected as we would like. And men and women in this field both deal with it, and we all get frustrated with it, right?
Very true. Very, very true.
Yeah. And so I would say in my experience, I've sat on boards that are interviewing for jobs, and I've been interviewed for jobs. And, people have told me to my face before, if you are going out there to address a contractor, you realize how it's going to look, right? Like they're going to think, I'm going to use the exact words here. You're going to look like a meek little woman. And so like the person who said this, they said it with a good intention, and they were like, how do you handle yourself in those situations? But you shouldn't use those words to describe somebody. And also like hilarious. Like if somebody sees that when I'm coming, like we need to get to know one another.
Hey, let me introduce you to myself.
Yeah. So, and I get it. Like, of the women in the workplace, I choose to do my hair and makeup before work, and I wear outfits sometimes. So I come across as pretty feminine. But that doesn't mean that I can't hold my own. And so I need to project that I can, right? I need to project, one, that I'm not difficult to work with. It's not that I'm rude or unfriendly or anything, but I know my stuff, and I can stand up for myself, and I can be a part of this workplace and do so confidently. So that's one way to deal with it. I have also been on hiring boards where they have covertly said they weren't looking for a woman for this position. Now, I've also talked to friends in this industry who have been told similar things.
So what do you think that is?
Well, sometimes if you're dealing with certain environments, that it would be like maybe they do excellent work, but it's going to be a really hard work environment for a woman to be in. And I'm not saying that it's right, right? Like I'm not making excuses for it, but occasionally that is the reality. And in those cases, I don't want to work there anyway. For one thing, like if they haven't evolved that far yet, they're probably not a great career choice for me overall. Like you're not going to experience a lot of growth. You're not going to really be given the opportunities that you need to grow in your career in that sort of environment. So I don't want to work there in the first place. So realistically, that is something that's still out there. That is still something that has happened. If you do want a job in an environment that you think maybe has more of a preference for hiring men, yeah, that's frustrating. It is. But if you are strong, if you are confident, you can present yourself just as well as a male candidate easily, because you and I probably both know we've worked with men who are not confident on the job, right? Worked with men who are maybe not confident, maybe not competent. You find those people, throughout workplaces, and it's easy to be the best candidate if you know what you're doing and you are self-assured.
Yeah, and you find people like that through various stages of their career as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, right when they start, they can have that lack of confidence. They may not know a whole lot, but even midway into their career, they still gotta get that self-doubt. They still have that lack of confidence as well. We've talked for quite some time. Is there anything else that you would like to tell women who are looking to get into this field, or maybe who are just starting into this field? Is there anything that you would like to say to them? Anything that you would like to add that we probably haven't discussed yet?
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to give them some encouragement. Like, safety is a good field to be in. I've enjoyed my work. I really enjoyed my career. There's always jobs in it. And overall, I would just say I have made some of the greatest friends. I have had great male mentors who really helped me out. For me, and I think for most women, the positives far outweigh the negatives. So learning to deal with these situations will really help you. It will reduce the amount of stress and difficulties at work. But don't think just because you've got a situation that you can't handle, that it's something wrong with you. Like sometimes there are these situations where people will not evolve, they will not change. And sometimes we just need to make the best choices from ourselves, for ourselves out of that.
Well, it's still good. It's still good words of wisdom for women coming up and looking into getting into this field. Because it is an interesting field. It can be fun at times. Like you said, you will meet a lot of different people. Some that you'll speak to for years to come. But just with all of them, it still has its set of challenges as well. And those challenges will be different from project to project, site to site. You just have to kind of figure out how you're going to deal with them as it comes, because it's a changing environment every day that we deal with. So it's ever evolving. So I think anyone looking to get into this field would be very happy with it. I mean, at least I am. At least I have been. Speaking to you, it seems that you are as well. We both dealt with our difficult setbacks and challenges, and we've kind of found a way to overcome them and progress positively forward. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, or anything that you wanted to talk about?
For women who are dealing with difficulties like this, or who have a situation that they're not really sure to handle, feel free to reach out to other women in the workforce. You know, I'm on LinkedIn, you're on LinkedIn. People in safety really help each other out. So reach out for help. Don't feel like you're in it alone. A lot of times there is a solution and it's pretty easy. But for the more difficult ones, know that you've got support and you've got people out there who've experienced it as well. And we'll help you where we can. Absolutely.
Well, and like you just said, we're both on LinkedIn. So if anyone needs help or support with anything, we'll be more than happy. We would be ecstatic to help you out. So just feel free to reach out to us, and we will see what we can do to support you. But now, listen, I mean, really, before we get any further, this is not the only video that Rachel and I have made together. So we actually recorded another video yesterday where we're trying to provide some tips to those that are looking to get into this field. So, or who are just kind of starting out into it, and whether it be a man or a woman. So you can find that video. It's actually going to be on her YouTube page. So when you get done with this one, make sure you go to her channel, Ally Safety, and check that video out as well. And if you enjoy her content, I'm sure she would not shy away from an additional subscriber. So make sure to go down and hit the subscribe button. But as for this video, we hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got some value out of it. If you did find anything useful in this video, smash the like button, go down and hit the subscribe button. And if you didn't enjoy it and you didn't find any value out of it at all, then go find something to eat, come back, watch it again. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen. What?
Don't be hangry and comment. Wait till after you eat.
Yeah. Leave all those hangry comments till your post meal. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care of each other. We'll see you later.
See you later.
Bye.